My mom collapsed on our trip. ICU felt hopeless. Then a shelter pup quietly got me through it. I planned a small trip with my mom in April 2019. We drove from Hamilton, Ontario to Western Pennsylvania. We booked a cheap motel in Canonsburg because it sat between the places we wanted to see. We were going to watch greyhound races in Wheeling. Our main reason was to see Sher at PPG Paints Arena. We also wanted to check another MLB park. My mom loved the Blue Jays. We were tired but happy when we rolled our suitcases into the room. About 12 hours after we arrived, my mom collapsed. 1 second she was talking. The next she was on the floor not breathing. I called 911 with shaking hands. I pressed on her chest like the operator told me. The paramedics rushed her to Canonsburg Hospital. They said she had gone into cardiac arrest. They worked on her and got a pulse back. She never woke up. They transferred her to West Penn Hospital in Pittsburgh. Machines breathed for her. The ICU was bright and cold. I watched the monitor. A doctor explained there was little brain activity. I nodded because words would not come. A nurse asked what I needed. I said, a dog. It came out without thinking. The hospital didn't have therapy animals, but the staff tried to help. They made a few calls. I pulled out my phone and searched myself. The first shelter I called said they were too busy. I kept dialing. I reached ASAP Rescue inside a Petland on Penn Avenue 10 minutes away. I told them my mom was in the ICU and I just needed time with a dog. They told me to come and stay as long as I wanted. I drove there alone. My hands were tied on the wheel. When I walked in, the staff asked which dog I wanted to see. I said I couldn't choose. I said I might face a life support call soon. I didn't want to play favorites with love. They nodded and brought out a 5-month-old pup named Julian. They said he was half boxer, half pit bull. I sat on the floor. He walked over and put his paw on my knee. I started to cry and he leaned closer. He licked my hand once, careful and soft. He didn't chew my fingers when I fed him treats. He didn't try to play with toys when I was there. The staff said he was usually wild with other dogs, but he was calm with me. They watched us and said they had never seen him this gentle. I held him like a baby. He fell asleep in my arms. For 4 hours on Good Friday I just held him. When I stood up to leave, he opened his eyes and followed me to the door. I told him I'd be back. Back at the hospital, the nurse had saved me a cup of coffee and a blanket. I stood by my mom and talked about our plan to see Sher. I told her about the pup. I told her I was scared. Her chest rose and fell with the machine. The next day a doctor met me in a small room with a box of tissues. He went over scans again. He said nothing had changed. I stared at my hands on the table. I asked every question I could think of. I knew what his answers meant. People who loved my mom were checking on me from Canada. They all said the same thing about the concert. They said my mom would have wanted me to go. The nurse said it too. I didn't think I could. It felt wrong to do anything fun while she lay there. Then I thought about how my mom planned this whole trip. I knew what she would say if she could speak. That night I went to the show. I sat in the crowd and held my phone in my lap. Sher walked on stage and people cheered. I watched and cried and clapped. I kept thinking, this is free mom. After I went back to the ICU and sat with her again. On Easter Sunday my mom died. The room was quiet. A nurse squeezed my shoulder. I signed what needed signing. I touched my mom's hand and said goodbye. When the funeral home took her, the nurse made sure I ate. On Easter Monday, while paperwork moved, I drove back to ASAP Rescue. I told them what happened. They brought out Julian again. He saw me and came straight over. He didn't look away from me. He laid his head on my leg like he remembered his job. I cried into his fur.